Hello, and welcome to the Times Higher Education webinar, Designing Secure Assessments in the Age of AI, held in partnership with Turnitin. My name is Sridhu. I'm the Deputy Editor for Branded Content at THE. The initial sense of overwhelm and, of course, the Asimovian narratives around AI are slowly giving way to conversations on how we can use this groundbreaking technology to shape a better future for us all. For those who are in the teaching and learning space, AI brings more immediate challenges, an important one being assessment security, which is complicated by the fact that this technology itself is evolving. Only a few days ago, OpenAI launched its new model, GPT-4o, with new multimodal and multilingual capabilities. Along with the ongoing digitalization in the higher education sector, as these AI models are rolled into society, universities are rethinking the value of different assessment models. This will be the key focus of our discussion today: how to design secure and effective assessment models when AI is advancing at such a quick pace. We have a wonderful panel of experts joining us today. I will now invite them to introduce themselves, starting with Daniel.
Hello, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Daniel Trujillo. I am the Director of Quality Improvement at Auburn University, the Harrison College of Pharmacy. We are located in the Southeast United States, and we are also happy Turnitin product users. We currently use ExamSoft, and we recently just started training to launch similarity and originality on our campuses.
Thank you, Daniel. Eric?
Hi, good day, everybody. My name is Eric Connolly. I'm the Regional Vice President for Turnitin in North America, and prior to that with over the ExamSoft product and services under the Turnitin family. And want to thank everybody for coming. Such a polarizing topic. I'm appreciative for being invited as well, and based here out of Phoenix, Arizona.
Thank you, Eric. Matt?
Hi, my name is Matt Koss. I am an instructional designer at Michigan State University with the College of Nursing. Also an ExamSoft user and Turnitin user as well here at our university in the United States.
Thank you, Matt. Sabi?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Prof. Sabih Meshadani. I'm consultant dermatologist. I'm working now as assessment director for the Arab Board of Health Specialization, also the chairperson in National Assessment Center of Medical Competencies. Thank you for having me with you in this discussion panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabi. And finally, Therese.
Hi, I'm Therese Bird. I'm the educational designer for Leicester Medical School in the United Kingdom. And my understanding of AI began and was shaped with a research project I did with our students, finding out how they were using it. So that was a good beginning.
Thank you, Therese. Before we begin, I would like to add that this webinar is being recorded, and we will share an on-demand video and a summary article with all the participants after the webinar. We will be taking questions from the audience towards the end of our discussion, so please use the Q&A function to post any questions you would like to ask our panelists. We are fortunate to have a number of colleagues from Turnitin joining us today. They're here to answer any questions you might have about using Turnitin tools and features, and they will be monitoring the Q&A in the background to answer your questions. And it looks like we have a fantastic turnout today. Thank you all for joining us. We're thrilled to see so many of you here, and it really shows how important and timely our topic is. On that note, I would like to start our discussion by exploring the complexities that AI bring to high-stakes assessments. Compared to liberal arts subjects, what unique challenges does AI bring to disciplines such as healthcare and law? I would like our academic panelists to answer that, given that you come from similar disciplines but different regions around the world. Who would like to take that? Therese, perhaps I could come to you. Oh, Daniel, yes, please go ahead.
Hello, thank you. Yes, AI is definitely poses, I think, unique challenges for health sciences education, law, other professional programs. A lot of just kind of the nature of testing historically in those programs has been a lot of multiple choice. Actually, here in the US, the National Board of Medical Examiners, NBME, they released a paper, I'd say about 3 to 5 years ago, and it really talked about how to construct exam questions. And it was basically, you have a clinical vignette, and then you have possible detractors of multiple choice items, and then of course, one correct answer. And the licensure exams for medicine and pharmacy are all multiple choice. And so as you can imagine, compared to liberal arts, where you might have essay writing, or I know I did a degree in history, we use a lot of paper and things like that. When it comes to the actual testing of itself, I think that poses some unique challenges compared to other disciplines.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Well, I can just mention that when the ChatGPT bomb exploded upon us all, I felt a little bit protected because, as Daniel just said, most of our healthcare and medicine exams are multiple choice, single best answer. We have them in person, we invigilate face to face. So we didn't have the problems, it appeared, that other disciplines in terms of essay writing, where things could be, just copied and pasted, as they have been, from we've been having this just with the internet, but ChatGPT just made it so much more nicely worded. And then I realized that I teach on a master's course where we do essays. And so I had to watch my step, and I had to understand how to discern whether this was generated by AI, and I was able to catch a few that were. And uh, I've spoken with deans in the National Health Service here in the UK, and their higher level job applications are also essay, and so they're very concerned about this same issue. And so they had me like to come and try to discuss how are we going to handle this. So still, we're in the early stages, and there's certainly no simple answer. I think we're all just trying our best.
Yeah, it's true that even after all these years, we are in the early stages of figuring this out. Let's come to Matt next.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the one thing that we, with the nursing program that we have, we just switched over into our new essentials not too recently. And the thing that we've run into is they have a lot of NCLEX questions that are starting to pop up. And, there's that ethical concern from that standpoint. But again, it's that clinical judgment that the students have to do. And again, making sure that it is helpful for the faculty to help them generate questions, but then and get feedback on that. But it still takes that person to go through that and actually vet that information from that standpoint. But again, it doesn't take away from that clinical critical thinking piece. One of the faculty that I had worked with allowed me to use some of her NCLEX questions throughout the process just to kind of see how the AI would actually answer and critically think through it. It's not 100%. I mean, it was probably 60 to 70% there, and that was right when 3.5 and 4.0 started. So as this evolves and changes, it's going to get smarter, and we just need to find ways around that to kind of, use the tool, but also not take out the clinical people in that situation, because they have vast information that the AI does not. And again, those AIs have those biases potentially in there, and where they're getting programmed from, and again, trying to figure out what would work for one patient may not work for another patient in that situation because of those biases. So we have to really make sure that we pay attention to that in that process.
Thank you. Sabi, please.
Well, thank you very much. Really, in our Arab Board of Health Specialization, we run around 86 exam per year for different subspecialty. And what we usually use is the MCQs. And just a few of the subspecialty use some essay question. I will turn the page from challenges to opportunity that I hope, because we are running exam in most of Arab countries, and we have around 17 exam center in the area. What we need actually is how to use AI in the proctoring system of our exam. And also what we need really, we are يعني, although we are certifying body, but we are a training body also. That's why we would like to get use of AI in defining the weak area, or in defining some sort of adaptive assessment, informative assessment. And we are trying now some sort of serial formative assessment to find out the strength and with the weakness. And we are grouping people, and we are doing some sort of not a personalized adaptive assessment, but we call it a group adaptive testing. And we are trying our best to find the learning pathway for each individual or candidate in our Arab board. So I will change the subject from challenges to opportunities rather than, really, I am not, I am optimistic that we can get use of AI in our directions. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's exactly where I wanted to go. I wanted to explore that further. I'm also interested in the opportunities that AI brings to the table in the context of potential breakthroughs that AI can bring about in subjects like life science and healthcare. I was wondering, should it be a part of learning and assessments in a practical way? And what is the significance of incorporating AI-driven innovations into teaching and learning in disciplines like these? Yes, Reese.
Well, just an example. We're starting to use we're starting to use ChatGPT in our, let's say, formative assessments. So we would give the students a question and ask them to ask it to ChatGPT, and then they have to critique it. And then they have to discuss that critique together with others on the discussion board. And to me, I think that's beginning to get to the kind of place that I would like to be, so that the students kind of understand how these AI tools work, understand their good points, their bad points, what you can use them for, what you probably need to be checking them for. We use the UNESCO flowchart that teaches students how to know whether it is safe to trust the answer for ChatGPT, and we encourage them to help like answer questions in a group. One person always goes to the NHS website and double checks it there, things like that, so that they can just kind of get used to the caveats as well as the strengths of these AI tools.
Anyone else like to jump in there to add to that?
I'll add just, if it's okay, I'll add from just a technology perspective, because I can kind of feed off of what Therese said. If writing is any indicator, from what we've seen over the last couple of years working on the AI, and particularly the last year and a half since ChatGPT has been live, it's that there is a building expectation over time that the students will learn to leverage this type of tool, and it will become more and more common in various workplaces. So from a technology perspective, then the onus is upon us to figure out not only how we can help provide insights into the use of any kind of AI tool, but also over time, how we can partner to promote it as an opportunity to expand upon a profession and not just have it be something that's punitive all the time. So it's been a very, and you think all of this has happened in a very short period of time, right? So it's been a very fascinating progression. And I would expect in the world of assessment, the world of healthcare, some of these high stakes licensure areas, we will see a similar progression.
So the heightened possibility of AI assisted academic misconduct also raises the question, can we continue to rely on the familiar models of assessments to get an accurate picture of students' learning and skills? Before we talk about exam security in detail, let's briefly explore what secure assessment means to give a more concrete foundation for our discussion going forward. So, to our panelists, what would you say are the key pillars of designing secure assessments, the critical aspects that universities should keep an eye out for? Eric, could I come to you on that?
Sure, I can kick it off wide, and then maybe the group can take it in a little bit more narrowly. I think historically, secure assessment could largely be done through the incorporation of critical thought and having assessment that's time bound. In other words, if you have enough critical thought and you limit the amount of time to work a particular problem, you can get a pretty good idea and an assessment of where a student stands on a subject matter. I think where AI is disrupting that is that literally as the week goes by, because weeks feel like years now with AI and the progression that it's making, is that it's really beginning to tackle that critical thought. So when you take that complex healthcare question, for example, and you run it through AI capabilities, not only is it getting very good at discerning the critical thought component of that question, but also providing the rationale as to why. So the way that plays into assessment is just those two components being time bound and being tied to critical thought are no longer enough to get an accurate picture. I think from our perspective, where the challenge leans to more really just kind of completely disconnecting from the digital world while still using a digital device, is because we're seeing the AI tools being built more into the daily operating systems, right? They're becoming extensions of a device versus a website or an application. And that's certainly from a security perspective and just trying to level set assessment across the board, certainly probably the biggest disruptor that we're seeing.
Thank you, Eric. Matt, can I also get your perspectives on this?
Yeah, I was, coming from a healthcare side, because that's mainly where I've been focusing on with my faculty. Again, like I said, with the security stuff, I mean, again, it's all multiple choice exams. Again, we use ExamSoft, so we have, at least from the proctoring standpoint, to have that so that they're not cheating in a sense, so they'll sign in, verify who they are. So that's important. It is timed. Questions are randomized, things like that. But I think for more of the higher stakes than that, that we can implement, at least from the nursing perspective, is simulation. So the students have to go through a simulation, use, or standardized clients. And then they have to demonstrate and do, and you really can't, I don't think at this moment, AI can't do that for you. They can't go in and, insert a central line for you. Maybe in the future, maybe when we do have the robots out there, they can potentially do that for you. But currently that is one of the main things for us, because they have to do the checkoffs and they have to go through. And again, AI can't do that for you.
Thank you. I want to go back to something that Sabi mentioned, which is what are some of the ways that technology can be an ally in mitigating the challenges posed by AI in exam security and academic integrity? I guess I'm referring to methods such as online proctoring and offline digital assessments, again, which Eric mentions. Can I ask the panelists to maybe elaborate on that and share experiences from your institutions? Yes, please.
Well, during the COVID lockdown, everybody was sort of pushed ahead in, technological scale, 10 years in that 1 year, if I might say that. And what we did, just, because here we were, um, we actually used, all our students generally have iPads, and they were doing their exams on their iPads at home, and then we would just use Zoom to watch them. So we just had, however many invigilators, and just watched 25 students per screen. And, that was the way we did it. It was awkward, it was clumsy, but it did seem to get the job done.
Thank you. And Sabi, can I also get your thoughts on this?
Well, thank you very much indeed. Security of the exam is the most important issue with the exam itself. However, we have used many things to keep our exams in a secure fashion. However, I think yani supplementing these measures by AI proctoring, I think it would be essential for the next 2 or 3 years. Now in the Arab board, we use these centers, and we use Zoom to monitor our people in here and there in different exam center. However, I think we are now discussing to use AI in proctoring our examinee.
Thank you. And something that I want to pick up on is when you're thinking about online proctoring, what are the privacy and ethical concerns involved in that? Would anyone like to share your perspectives on that, and what strategies you have taken to mitigate issues there? Yes, Daniel.
Thank you. As I was preparing for this webinar, the thought occurred to me, and it hadn't occurred before, is first to start out, one of the things we're working on is to develop a policy around AI and its use in academics. And the number one thing we all agree on in consensus is transparency, so that the student lets us know, did they use AI, whether it was in brainstorming or an initial draft or fact finding. But then the thought occurred to me that we as faculty, administrators, educators, we also owe it to the students to be transparent if we're using AI and how we grade them or proctor them or those types of things, and we should be upfront. And I hadn't really considered that before. It's kind of a blind spot for me, but I'm glad I had that thought and I wanted to share it today.
Thank you, Daniel. And Everick, as a technology provider or technology partner in this space, what has been your experience, and how have you witnessed the industry attitude to this change?
It's interesting. I think there was such a rush for a need for proctoring during the pandemic, and rightfully so, right? It was an overnight disruption, and you don't ever see that. But also from a technology perspective, that becomes really fatiguing really quick to those that are on the receiving end of it. So I think as we constantly went through that evolution and sort of the various phases of proctoring and invigilation, I think we're constantly looking through the lens of what's good enough and where's the appropriate line that we can draw that still allows the power and the decision making to reside within the institution, to reside within the student, but provides enough information to be helpful without stepping over the line. So as we got later during the pandemic, I can remember one of the strategic pivots being as we saw proctoring advancing very rapidly in its invasiveness. I can specifically remember us drawing a line and kind of stopping and saying, this is as far as we're going to go, because after this, it's too polarizing. We don't want to be in that space, right? We want to be in the technology space as far as enhancing student outcomes and learning, and we don't necessarily want to be the police for that. So it's at that point we felt like we had a product that could provide enough information to the academic side from a decision-making standpoint and from a remediation standpoint, And we kind of chose to draw the line and kind of err on the side of student privacy, biometric privacy, those sorts of things.
Thank you. I want to move on, but go back to high stakes assessments in disciplines such as healthcare and law. I've heard academics say that they're moving away from the attitude that the end product or the final outcome is what matters, and the focus is shifting to the learning process and the academic journey. Yet, clear programmatic outcomes are essential in your disciplines to ensure student success and also quality assurance. Do you have any perspectives to share from experiences you've had at your institution in reconciling these two approaches? Again, I'm going to my academic colleagues here. Yes, Tanya.
Thank you. One thing that we really believe in here at the Harrison College of Pharmacy is the idea that in order for learning to take place, that students need specific feedback, as specific as possible. Which, side note, I don't know that AI in its current form always has that specificity. And then two, deliberate practice. And one of the things I really like about the ExamSoft tools is we have, for example, all the questions across the entire curriculum that deal with calculations, ask students to conduct calculations, we had it tagged. And so then periodically at the end of every year, we run a report for each individual student. So every student gets one, and it shows, hey, here's how you're performing in calculations, or here's how you're performing in communication or law or conducting a patient history. And so giving them that specific feedback is really, really key for us. And I think that this is more of a technology overall as opposed to AI specific, but I think the more technology grows and the more we can give them the specific feedback, I think that really hits on that learning process piece.
Thank you. And Therese.
Yeah, I can just kind of pick up on that. I'm not sure that we're using this yet in our summative assessments, but in our formative assessments, we give students the strengths and opportunities report, which then this is provided by ExamSoft, and the breakdowns are by the categories of study, the domains of learning, and we can do that without giving the students what the actual questions were. So the student, and that this is how we protect our exam integrity. It's hard to get good questions, so we're able to use the ExamSoft technology like that without giving back the students questions. Sometimes the students complain, but at least they've got, the domains, how they scored in cardio, how they scored in GI, etc. And so that's just a great tool for us.
Thank you, Therese. We'll come to Sabine next, and then Matt. Please go ahead, Sabine.
Thank you very much indeed. We always concentrate on high-stake exams, and the summative exams. I think there's a great area to work on it, which is the formative or assessment for learning, and even assessment as learning, and to develop things by AI. What I am looking for nowadays is how, as a technical people, can help us in doing some sort of adaptive assessment after each formative assessment. I need immediate feedback, and I need some sort of adaptive assessment for each individual or for each group. I hope that we can do something in this regard. Really, I am doing now on my website, the National Assessment Center of Medical Competencies. I recruited around 4,000 medical students in the clinical phase, and we are starting formative assessment, and we need some tools to help us to find out easily, not by each individual or each student, to find out a program or something by AI, help us to determine the next assessment or the next test set for particular student or for particular group. This is a really an immediate, urgent demand for us. And thank you if you can support us as soon as possible.
Thank you, Sabi. And Matt.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of piggyback off of what Daniel said about being transparent with the students on that, because you know, they should know in that sense. But from a faculty standpoint, you know, I work with, you know, from an instructional design standpoint, you know, the faculty that I work with, they have multiple hats that they have to wear throughout the process. You know, they have a research component, they have a teaching component and a clinical component where they have to see clients. So I'm usually the last person that is on their list, because, you know, the teaching is important, but they have that clinical and obviously the donors and that's usually depending on their percentage on their appointment. So again, from the assessment piece, you know, a lot of instructors that I work with are not trained as instructors. They are trained as medical professionals and they like to teach. So this AI, I really like it because it will help them determine exam questions, because they're not taught how to write exam questions. So they can at least give this as a good starting point, and they'll help them build and make sure that their questions are in alignment. However, the one thing that I am concerned about is obviously the student data and the privacy issues within that. So that's my biggest concern right now, is like, where is this information being stored and how is it? And I know it's obviously training things moving forward, but that's the biggest piece that I worry about with HIPAA and FERPA for us, with student information, how much we can put in and how much we can't put in that sense. So just making sure that we are transparent with the students and the faculty when we're using the tools.
Could I actually ask you a follow-up question there and ask you to elaborate on that? Does AI bring that opportunity to rethink and innovate current assessment strategies to better align them with student needs and technological advancements, which some might say is overdue? Would you agree with that?
I think that with working with my nursing faculty, I think one thing that has been helpful, again, it all comes down to prompt writing within the AI. You know, you put good information in, usually it'll come back out. However, obviously we need to refine and adjust as we go through, and obviously as these tools get better, I think that it will create better exam questions. The one thing that I noticed working with faculty with at least exam creation or rubric creation for assignments and assessments is sometimes it picks up things that the faculty weren't even thinking about on that, and it made them adjust their assignments, which is great. And the other piece is that feedback, which I know Daniel and I think everybody else on this panel has brought up, is the feedback. You know, I have hard enough time getting faculty to actually get their exams in time, because it's always up against the exam time. And it's the one thing that the AI has done really well, I think, for them, is actually providing that additional feedback. Again, it's not going to replace that faculty member in that sense of providing the feedback. But again, within ExamSoft, for example, you can put in like why the answer is correct or incorrect. And again, it can spit that out in 10 seconds and the faculty can look that over and they're like, yep, that's great. Or no, I need to adjust that because of XYZ. And then they can provide that. And then when the students go through their assessment and get the feedback at the end, it's instantaneous at that point. Because I don't think the faculty, at least for the ones I've worked with, don't have the time components to actually build a lot of these pieces in. And I think the AI can really help generate some of that for them.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, could I also get your thoughts on this? Yes, and after that, I'll come to Sabi.
Yes, actually, I agree with what everyone says. Like, there's so much more we could do with this. Like what Sabi was saying about having adaptive assessments would be a game changer. So earlier I talked about us giving students specific feedback. Let's say we had a student and they excelled at calculations. They do amazing. And then we have another student and they really struggle with, or that same student really struggles with identified drug characteristics. Then we could give them an adaptive assessment that asks more questions on drug characteristics and less questions on calculations. So something like that, I could see where it would really, really help us take the next step. And really the horizon is, I think, is there.
Thank you, Daniel. And Sabi, please.
I will tell you frankly that we have used ChatGPT in producing stations for clinical exams. And it was fantastic because يعني the time used to make a station, a proper station, it was a very long period. But using ChatGPT made everything easier, rapid, and a very nice, quite comprehensive rubric for each station. And many disciplines, now I am training people, those who are in the exam committee for each discipline, how to use ChatGPT in producing their station. And even sometimes they put their old stations in the ChatGPT to make a lot of improvement on that. So it is really fantastic. I think we have to encourage people to use ChatGPT or any AI rather than make people afraid because of the security. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I-
Speaking of, yes.
If I could just speak to some of these themes from a technology perspective, it makes me excited to hear because it's in line with a lot of initiatives that we're working on. But one of the key themes that's come up in this process, really two, one is how can you leverage AI from an efficiency perspective, right? So that it provides a more tailored and custom output depending on, or input, right? Depending on what you need. And the second piece that comes up regularly, whether it's this panel or just externally and talking with customers, is how can you give more insight into the journey, right? Versus just evaluating the destination. We've seen that on the writing side. We're seeing it now on the assessment side too, right? Which is how can we give visibility from a technology perspective into how a student arrives at an answer versus just evaluating the answer that was arrived at. And same thing, we're doing the same thing, a very similar project on the writing side, right? Seeing the entire process from start through creation to final product versus just evaluating the final product. I think we see the same opportunities on the assessment side, albeit slightly differently leveraged, which is, can we help on the content side, right? That's a constant struggle and a constant need from a feedback standpoint. Can we get more tailored in secondary assessment, right? And follow-up assessment, as it was mentioned here. Can we leverage AI and other pieces of efficiency on the faculty side, right, to make the process a little bit smoother? So it's encouraging to hear this feedback. These are big challenges, but I think it's also iterating us in the direction to where we recognize that AI is here to stay, right? And it's going to become a more powerful tool over time. And how can we harness and embrace that while still also respecting the integrity of the process and the human involvement in that process? So exciting stuff to hear.
Thank you, Rick. Speaking of human involvement and student-faculty interactions, in the previous webinar in this series, which was on AI writing, one of our panelists mentioned how detection tools such as those by our colleagues at Turnitin help to initiate a conversation with students on why they don't trust their own voices, that they resort to using AI. I'm curious what kind of conversations you are having at your institutions. Do you think personalized interactions can help mitigate the challenges in academic integrity? Again, I'll come to our academic panelists on this. Yes, Reese.
Yes, I think having a conversation with the student is the only way. Um, if I were to use a tool and assume that, okay, this definitively has decided that you have cheated this whole thing, um, I think that might just lead to lawsuits. I don't know, but it's much better to have the conversation about it. And I have to say, in my institution, we have not switched on the Turnitin uh, generative AI detection tool, but we're monitoring it. We're testing it. We're discussing with other universities who have turned it on. It's a kind of a watch this space kind of thing. But I think it just the cases that I'm aware of where it was sort of pretty obvious from the piece of writing that it was generated by a tool. Um, you just get much better. Uh, it's a much better learning experience if you can discuss this with the student. And it seems to me like it's best if we can start off early in their academic career, so that they can sort of get used to, they're probably using ChatGPT now in A levels, or in high school in the States. So, you know, but when they come into the university system, it's probably a good thing to kind of early on educate them and discuss with them what is a good way of using it, what is not a good way of using it. Um, we're considering having a cover sheet for assignments, just to say, did you use an AI tool? Which one and why? So not no judgment, just a disclosure.
Thank you, Trace. Matt?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you do need to have the conversation. We actually here at the College of Nursing we were able to actually have a session on AI with our students. They were our senior level students, but at least it was, we got them before they left the program because we know that they're going to be using these tools when they get into the hospitals, because we had gotten some feedback that some of the EHRs that they're using have some AI built into them, and they're starting to use that. So we were able to get that started this past semester. We're hoping to get it in on the as they come in. And I know Teresa, you had said something about the younger students having that. I do have a child in middle school, and he does use this regularly. So I don't see this going away. And we've had Google forever, and working with medical professionals, they always are like, oh, I Googled this because this is the symptoms I had. So this is a little more sophisticated than that. So this isn't a new concept by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a lot more powerful than just Googling it at this point. But I think, again, being out in front of it, being transparent with the students and explaining what you can use it for, what you shouldn't be using it for, and making sure that's out in your syllabus with your expectations for the course. I'm not saying that they shouldn't use it or they should use it, but there are certain situations that I think that they can. But just being upfront and transparent with them is the most important part of the process.
Yes, Daniel.
I believe Matt mentioned this earlier, maybe towards the start of the webinar. This idea of doing more in-person, practice-focused, we call them performance-based assessments or OSCEs. And so comes from somebody with an assessment background. I like this because it's the highest level. It's direct evidence of student learning. So we have the Bloom's taxonomy, which goes from knowledge all the way up to the application piece. In health sciences education, there's actually something we've been using. It's called the Miller's Pyramid, which mirrors the Bloom's taxonomy. If anybody ever wants to look that up, it's super useful. And basically at the top of the Miller's Pyramid it's basically the student shows. They actually in person demonstrates or shows what they can do, whether that's taking a medication history or a blood pressure. And those, I call them live action kind of events. Those you really can't have as much AI assisting the students. And then I just follow up with one more thing, is that in our graduate programs, our PhD programs, We also have been moving a little bit more towards that, where we're actually having students develop posters and present, and they're graded on their ability to present the poster and the concepts concisely and answer questions effectively. And so we're really kind of moving towards those more kind of live action type assessments for the students.
We are almost out of time. Before we take questions from our participants, I want to touch on the point about embracing AI with caution. And I imagine institutions have to be brave to embrace AI and the possibilities that it brings, but also promote the responsible use of AI. And Trace mentioned this earlier. From a pedagogical point of view, what are the best strategies for teaching students how to use AI responsibly, and also critically engage with the information that they come across on AI tools? Yes, Reese.
Well, so I meet the students on day one, and I start with the year ones, and I discuss what ChatGPT and other tools are, what they could be used for, what you need some caution with, what you might be legally liable for if you trust them and mistreat a patient. These sorts of things, just give them some big perspective on it. And then we've just recently had a couple of our staff do some research about how we have teaching in small groups. Students get together and they just work out questions and things together, almost like team-based learning. And so we advise them, have one of the team be somebody who will fact check if you're using ChatGPT to answer the questions. Um, and we're also trying to get into the undergraduate curriculum some of the uses of AI that they're going to encounter as doctors. For example, radiology. You know, how do these tools read the scans? What you have to know about where the data has come from, how to ask these questions. The NHS actually has a digital framework in which artificial intelligence is the first factor of it. And so I'm starting to use that as a way to digitally educate the students for that world.
Thank you. We'll come to Matt and then Daniel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, from the one thing that we actually presented to the students just a couple weeks ago, what's really kind of hit home for them was from the American Nursing Association. They basically said you can use AI, and they're not saying that you shouldn't use AI, but in a clinical setting. But the piece that they wanted to really emphasize was the critical judgment. So again, you can get your information from wherever you're going to get it, but it's still your responsibility to fact check and verify that that information is correct. So again, a person that's got 20 years experience on the floor is gonna, they've had worked with thousands and thousands of patients, and they have that expertise. And if they see something, they're gonna remember that because of the experience. So using that knowledge that they had on there is not going to take, the AI is not going to take that away in a sense. But again, if they want to use it to verify or to check information, they're more inclined to do it. But again, it's going back and making sure that they verify that that is correct, as opposed to just taking it at face value.
Thank you, Matt. And finally, Daniel.
We started doing this after COVID. Is during orientation for the new students, me being the assessment director, I'll go and I'll meet with the class during orientation and have like a 30-minute session with all of the students where I kind of go over what assessment looks like, why it's important, pluses and minuses of AI. So just really to set that tone early on. And then how I explain it to our students is, and this I think is especially true in professional schools, be it law or medicine or pharmacy or nursing, is they're really teaching students in a similar way to how someone learns how to play an instrument. So you could go every day and try to learn how to play the piano, but unless you had specific feedback and deliberate practice and those types of things, you would never actually learn how to play the piano. And so what I try to impart on the students is after their 4 years with us is we want them to be musicians, or in this case, pharmacists at the end of the 4 years. So when they're here, you're here to actually learn how to play the instrument, not just get by. And that's kind of the analogy I use with our students. And I'm hoping that kind of sits in with them.
Thank you, Daniel. I can see we have so many questions from our participants. We will try to get to as many as we can in the next 10 minutes. Let's take a few questions now. So the first one is, how are you keeping up with the latest technology that may be being used by our students or other institutions? I guess that's referring to the evolving nature of technology. And I guess the question here again is, how can institutions take proactive measures to in this space? Matt, I see you have raised your hand. Would you like to take that?
Yeah, so at Michigan State University, I will say one of the things that we have done really well, I work with very closely. I mean, there's a number of instructional designers that are spread out throughout all of campus. So we have a pretty nice network of people that have worked within multiple disciplines that we kind of created a community in a sense. And we also kind of have a Teams channel and a website and all this other stuff. So we basically, I get notifications every day about just different things that people are seeing and doing. And, you know, we all kind of collaborate and work together on that to kind of keep people abreast of new things coming out. And, you know, I have coworkers that are very interested in AI as well. So, you know, we have a group as well. And then we present, and we just had a teaching and learning conference on our university just a couple weeks ago, where people were able to bring those ideas together. So I think the biggest piece there would, you know, align yourself with like-minded people that are really interested in this. And again, because you can't know it all, and you're not going to be, because it's just developing and evolving, you know, by the minute. So allowing yourself to work with others to kind of bring that out, I think, is the best.
Thank you, and Trace.
Yeah, I just say ditto to that. We do similar in my institution, and I would also add that I'm doing some research with other colleagues in other departments in which we're trying to build our own GPTs, our own custom GPTs on the OpenAI site, just so that we can understand how it works. And then, you know, the more kind of under the hood understanding we have, the better we can advise our students.
Thank you. The next question we have is, what is the role of institutional policy in developing secure assessments? Who would like to take that? Sabi, can I pick on you?
Well, regarding keeping our exam secure, in general, we have our policy in the Arab Board. In addition, we are discussing things. How could AI breach the security of our exams? Till now, our general policy is the same. We didn't change anything regarding the security. The security that provided by the exam soft is quite enough for the time being, and we hope that we can manage. Till now, we have no evidence that we have been breached by any attack or anything that make the security or the privacy of the exam disturbed by any means. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, I see you've raised your hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, from the security standpoint and having policy, I think just each department, you know, depending on which discipline you have, because again, from my side with nursing and more the medical is going to look a lot different than potentially what like the law school or would do that, because based off of what type of assessments they're doing. Just making sure that that transparency is there, making sure that it's in the syllabus, to make sure that like the consequences are right out front for the students so that they're aware of that, so that they know where they can use it, where they can't use it, and then what those repercussions are. I know we're having those conversations. The university as a whole is having those conversations as well. And just trying to, there's not a one size fits all right now for that. And it's, it is a moving target, but, again, putting it in the syllabus, making sure you at least have some of your bases covered. And as this stuff evolves, I mean, we'll have to adjust as the technology evolves as well.
Would you also like to contribute, Therese?
Yes, so just to say, if the exams in question are something like MCQs or short answer exams, use a super secure system such as ExamSoft. And if it's essays, we've just been advised to think about it and try to word your essay, your assignment requirements in such a way that you would be able to pick up if it's generated by a tool. So in other words, personal reflection, personal application from your life story, something like this, which is much harder for a machine to imitate.
Thank you. There's also a question here about making sure the assessments, the future assessments are equitable. So continuing from policy and regulation frameworks, how can we make that the assessment models that we design are equitable for all the students? Would like to come in? Yes, Daniel.
I think one of the big steps is to continue to collaborate with faculty on how to best do that. I don't know if this has been mentioned yet, but I think especially now with how fast it's grown and continues to grow, is having an international perspective on what others are doing. So if you can attend an international conference or international webinar to learn more in regards to making them equitable. That's one area where we really struggle with the tools of how to best do that. One area we've had success with, though, is students with our Office of Accommodation. So those students who may need more testing time or quiet environment. And so like with ExamSoft, we can set the exam for some students to be a time and a half or double time, and then extend the exam review time period for them so they have a little bit more time to review the exam. And so that is one plus, I think, of using something like ExamSoft. And I think that's a big win for everybody.
Thank you. We have an interesting question here. Why can't we just require our students to document any use of AI in the same way they would cite and footnote any other reference? Do you think that is a good strategy, or are there any shortfalls to that? Yes, Trace.
Yes, I think that's where our university is starting to head. Have some sort of declaration of what I used and why. I mean, and maybe I have to declare how I used it when I was creating the learning materials. We're beginning to experiment, do some research. Can some of these tools mark essays equitably? We're going to research that before, but research has already been done on this. So yeah, so transparency on both sides. And yeah, I agree with that documentation.
Mm-hmm. And then one more question, which is what is the importance of providing adequate training, not only to students, but also faculty and staff members to keep up with the dynamic nature of the technology and assessments? Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say, when this first came out, like over a year ago, I think most of the faculty that I worked with were like scared to death of this thing. Like they were like, I'm gonna stick my head in the sand. This isn't a thing. This isn't gonna, like this isn't it. Like they were just gloom and doom. Like the students are gonna use it to cheat, and that's just what it was gonna be. As I slowly worked with the faculty, at least from my perspective, I started peeling back those layers and as they were starting to use it more in the settings that they were needing it to be more efficient. I think they're coming on board now and they're really seeing the benefits of the tool. So, is it perfect? No. Is there any perfect tool? No, but it is a powerful tool if you can harness it and use it in a productive way. So just being able to educate those faculty members and students as well on proper uses of it, I think is the most important.
Thank you, Matt. And Sabi, please.
Well, ongoing training is essential, particularly after the age of 70.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our session. Thank you to our panelists for making this an interesting discussion, and thank you to all our audience members for joining us today and contributing to the discussion. Thank you also to our Turnitin colleagues for providing additional background support. We will send a poster and summary article and the recording of today's webinar to all the registered participants in the coming days. You can also watch the recordings of the webinars in this series held in partnership with Turnitin on the THE Connect YouTube channel. Thank you once again and goodbye.